There are a ton of videos out right now doing walkthroughs of all the features and the different capabilities of this radio right here. But that's not what this video is going to be about. We're going to be keeping it on brand and discussing the relevancy of this radio in a preparedness setting. So let's get into the TD-H-3. So right up front, I want to put it out there. TID Radio did contact me in doing a review of this radio. And I will say though, after receiving it, I did personally purchase one because I was kind of impressed with some of the features that it had. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But the intent of this channel is for education and to promote thought and discussion in the preparedness community, kind of centric around communications. At the conclusion of this video, I'm going to say maybe next week we'll shoot for next Saturday. I put an announcement out as a like one of the bulletin posts, but we are never here to try to build up our personal supply of these radios. So I'm going to keep the one that I purchased because I did like this. Spoiler alert! But the one that they sent me, we will be doing a live video, and in that live video, we'll do one of the computer-generated spin wheel machines games, and we will raffle this one off for free. Okay, so first things first, on this channel, we talk a lot about communications, preparedness, and of course, tactical medicine and rescue, because that's what Rand Strategies does. When we talk about radios and whatnot, though, one of the things that I think is very important, for a radio for me is just the overall form factor and the overall feel of the radio that I'm using. And the form factor that I prefer is that full form, public safety sized radio. It just gives the radio the real estate to lay out the display and the keypad the way that I feel that it's kind of supposed to be, for a aesthetically pleasing and easy to use radio. And it just feels, good in the hand, where you don't feel like you're going to break it if you drop it. You don't feel like you're going to break it if you accidentally squeeze the thing too hard. And I will say that the TD-H-3, this is definitely not that radio. Right off the bat, this thing is tiny, which for me is a huge negative. It's not going to fit in the majority of your standard radio pouches, and due to its size, it will just always look a little out of place with the rest of your gear, assuming you're, doing things from a tactical or rescue standpoint, and that's the gear that you're utilizing. Again, this is what's in my mind. You need to base this off of what you are going to be doing with this. So, I will give the fact that for the general feel of this radio, the build quality is probably comparable to that of a Kenwood or a Yaesu. It just feels solid. And again, this is a positive to me because I like feeling a good weight to size ratio. Maybe for your purposes, if you were doing some ultra, light backpacking type stuff, the super lightweight, Chinese type radios would be perfect because you're trying to shave off every gram that you can, but you want to keep a communications capability with you. That may be perfect to, get things as lightweight as you can get it. But just to help paint the picture of a comparison here, I put the H-3 on a digital scale, and it came weighing in at 236 grams, which for such a small radio is fairly heavy. And now if you look at that compared to, I put the Baofeng UV82 on the radio, and as you can see, it even has the extended battery on it. So it's fairly huge for its size, and that only comes in at 260 grams, which again gives it that really just kind of cheap feel for the size that it is. The weight doesn't line up with the size of the radio. Now my Motorola XPR 7550, which I think has a great, weight to size ratio, it looks like it weighs appropriately for how it looks. That came in at 372 grams. Another thing about this radio that makes it an automatic no-go for an operational radio to be used by RANT is that it doesn't hold an IP rating. I've said it before and I'll say it again, stealing from the tech prepper, because I love his line, we truly want and require tools, not toys. He always says that. I think that's the best way to put this. And being able to have confidence in our equipment in smoky, dusty, wet environments is an absolute must. And since we're addressing the negatives of this radio, I'll just stick with it. For all that this radio can do, I definitely think that they missed a mark here by not putting any sort of GPS chip into this. I know the Wuxon or Ocean, whatever you want to call it, the KG-Q10G and the BTEC Pro both have GPS chips in them. So you can do a lot when you put GPS capabilities into your radio, or at least you can do a lot more than you can if you don't have one. So that I think is, something they very easily could have done. Another thing is I get the convenience of the USB-C charging port right into the battery. And I know a lot of people are fans of that. I personally am not a fan of that. Call me old school. I personally like dropping my radio into a charging cradle. Time and places, different scenarios. Yes, the USB-C, that capability of being able to just charge it right into that port from your, power bank, your vehicle, whatever, I get it. And maybe I'll come around at some point, but right now I still just like being able to drop my radio into a cradle. As far as the antenna that they included in this, just be advised, if you, and you will be getting, this is when they sent me, the GMRS version of this radio. When you unlock the radio, I'm going to show you how to do that in this video. It will open it up that you can do the handbands and GMRS. Well, since GMRS is only UHF, they only send you a UHF frequency. So if you look at that, the underside of this antenna has a yellow ring on it, and it very clearly states it is a UHF 400 megahertz to 470 megahertz antenna. So that could be a problem if you just went ahead and unlocked this thing and started talking on 2 meters. So just a little situational awareness that you should be aware of before you go ahead and start transmitting on VHF with this. And then kind of round out the negatives. The last thing that I think, especially again, because we're talking about emergency preparedness specifically, is I would have liked this radio to have a weather alert feature, which it doesn't. You can put the no weather frequencies into it, but it has no alert feature, and that would have been cool. So I think that's where the negatives really end for me with this radio. And quite honestly, again, mission or usage dependent, they may or may not be a big deal to a lot of people out there watching this. One of the things I want to reiterate is, even with that solid build construction, the price point is also a huge pro for this radio. It's like $35, which is pretty much nothing. And when I go through this particular radio and I see how I would integrate it from a preparedness standpoint, that's a really big win, but it's not the biggest. So the first place I'm going to start here is with maximizing the frequency range of this radio. So when you purchase these radios, it apparently comes locked as either a GMRS or ham radio, but they all have the capability to do both. So as soon as you get this, the first thing you want to do is, with the radio turned off, press and hold the top push to talk button and then the star button. And while still holding these down, turn the volume knob to turn the radio on. This brings up the boot screen. And here you will see 1, GMRS, 2, ham, 3, normal. What you want to do is press 3 and then press 1 to confirm. Now, why would you ever change out of this mode? I have no idea. Just keep the thing unlocked. But if for some reason you would, just realize that each time you change its frequency ranges, the boot up mode that you're going into, you're also doing a factory reset. So if you program your radio in one mode and then boot it up in a different mode, just gonna understand you're going to erase every single thing that you had programmed in there prior to doing that. So all of your changes will be lost. Now, this sucks, but there's an easy workaround here. Actually, there are 3. So you can use Chirp, which I will be, willing to bet pretty much, bet money that pretty much all of us have experience in using. Or they also have their Oddmaster app and website. And I've never used a app to be integrated with a radio for programming and whatnot. I have to say, it's actually pretty convenient. I like doing it. I found it really easy. And you can, quite easily just copy your frequencies or your channels from the app via Bluetooth right into the radio's memory banks, which has 199 memory slots, by the way. Or, and this is not only the third workaround, but also one of the 2 reasons that I feel that this has an extreme, potential benefit in a preparedness setting, is that the H-3 can also be programmed by another H-3 just via the radio's Bluetooth, which is pretty freaking sick. So let me just stop right there and elaborate on this for a little bit. As I said before, this would certainly not be, my daily carry or go-to choice of radio. However, a lot of people's preparedness plans have, given thought to the reality that if our primary communications were to go down and radio communications with inter community were going to be a necessity, we're prepared to have a couple of extra radios, on hand to be ready to hand out. So, as previously stated, the price point at which these radios are certainly makes it a possibility to do with this radio. But my thing is, I would rather encourage people to, when we are having these discussions, to just, since we're here and we're having these talks, they at least have a slight interest in emergency preparedness. So advising them to pick up a radio to mess with and learn on seems like a no-brainer. With that, this isn't terribly difficult. They can kind of navigate around with it. It's kind of similar to that of a Baofeng menu, so you can't mess up too much just by messing around with it. So it'd be nice for them to have their own equipment, and then for me, I could easily keep one or two, of these for myself, completely set up, ready to go with the comms plans that I have established. And, then if the time comes, you could very quickly and easily meet up with your parties involved and Bluetooth them your entire code plug. And now you are all operating on the exact same layout and whatever options you, as being the radio guy, have selected for these radios to have in them and be able to utilize. Something as simple as having scramble on or PL tone set is all in place and they don't have to worry about it. So from my perspective, that is an incredible capability for this radio from the community standpoint. And where I see things like that happening a lot is, at these wildfire deployments, when you come in, you have firefighters and contractors and everybody coming in from all over the place. We have to go to the comms trailer. They have a single radio there. You have to go in, they have that radio, the programming radio hooked up with the cable. You got to come in with your cable, hook it up, and then they do, one radio at a time, which, as people are coming in and out at different times, that's not that big of a deal. But with this capability, the fact that you could Bluetooth your code plug to, however many radios are within your little region, because you'll be standing there ready to receive the code plug, and you could do it within a matter of seconds, and, conceivably you could do hundreds of radios at the same time. That's a, incredible time saver and almost force multiplier right there, because it just takes so little effort to do and it's so convenient. Also, and since we mentioned programming from Chirp and that Oddmaster app, they also, both of those things offer access to repeater databases, which is nice. Just kind of be on there and let it figure out where you are and what's close to you. I'll also just hit for a second the reason that I think this is a great preparedness radio, and the other reason that I purchased one of these for myself, is that it has an incredible receiving capability. It does your standard dual band transmit frequency range, your VHF 144 to 148, UHF 420 to 450, and that's what the majority of all of us are used to. But the big thing here is that it can receive 8 bands, and this, I feel, is absolutely invaluable. I harp all the time that not only are comms always the first thing to break down in a crisis, but being able to intelligence gather is always going to be vital. So this radio can receive on FM 50 to 76 megahertz, on AM 76 to 108 megahertz, and then 108 to 136 megahertz. Back to VHF, 136 to 174 megahertz, and then 174 megahertz to 350 megahertz, and then 350 megahertz to 400 megahertz. And on the UHF side, you're getting your 400 to 470 megahertz, and then 470 to 600 megahertz. And if you didn't catch that when I was rattling off all the frequency ranges that it can, do, the H-3 comes with the capability to receive a ton of extra frequencies, including the airband. And then another big win for this radio is that, which a lot of the cheap radios can overlook, is the fact that this keypad is backlit. So if you're using a radio in the dark, which could just be, it's dark outside and it's nighttime and you're operating, or you're in a dark building and there, it could be noon, but inside either the windows are boarded up or you're just, in a dark basement, there is no ambient light coming in. Being able to have a backlit keyboard is pretty much, it's not as invaluable, but it's a really, really nice luxury to have in place. And This radio does have an FCC ID assigned to it. So that's another thing that a lot of people, kind of get hung up on when it comes to if radios are coming from overseas. So you don't have to worry about it with this one. It does, like I said, it does have an FCC ID. So another concern that usually gets brought up in the preparedness community when it comes to communications is the fact of what happens if somebody gets captured. Not that I really feel that that's an issue, but what happens if you lose a radio? Now that code plug that you created, your scramble feature, anything else, that, whoever it is that finds it or picks it up now has access to all of that. Well, in addition to just being able to write a new code plug and Bluetooth it out to all the radios so you can change everything, the TID radios, because they have the DTMF capability, you can actually stun, kill, and revive these different radios. You have to go into the chirp programming software to set that up. But once that's on there, you can just enter a DTMF, code or kind of like password type thing onto your radio, hit the transmit, and then any radio that's on in there that you can either set it to stun or kill it, so it can't be used at all, or you can just put the code back in to revive the radio. So it's a really cool additional feature. Again, something that I feel is very relatable to the preparedness community and some of the concerns that we have when it comes to securing our communications. So that's another huge benefit of this radio. I hope you like this. So let me know in the comments if you agree with my assessment of this particular radio, or if you mess with any of the features that I would, may have missed that may play a really significant role in an emergency situation. One of the things I did notice about TID Radio is that they're not a pop-up, fly-by-night company. They've actually been around since 2013, which is surprising because I've never heard of them or seen any of their other stuff before. And they actually make RSMs as well as mobile radios as well. So if you've purchased any of these items, please let me know your experiences with them and how their build quality is, because again, aside from the size of this, I'm impressed with how well it feels like that it's made. Also with that, again, this is the first time that we've ever been approached by a company to do a review of a product. So they actually gave us a coupon code for 10% off your purchase. The coupon code is RANT, R-A-N-T 10. So if you decide to purchase one of these, please use that. We'll also put the affiliate link below, because people are always saying, how can we help support your channel? And I guess the best way to support us is to support yourself, get some gear. But if you're going to do that, please just use our code in the affiliate link so we can continue to get new stuff to check out and, bring forward to you guys. So also don't forget, we're going to be releasing this week. I will put the actual day we're going to do it. It's probably going to be Saturday, but we'll do the live spin the wheel game. We'll raffle one of these off for who's ever in the live, and they'll have a brand new radio to mess with and hopefully get to check out a lot of these features. So with that, as always, again, please like, share, and subscribe, and be safe.